Mate, you had a very interesting chat earlier this month.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to see, what was it, buyer behaviours.
Oh,
and
the chat
talking-
with Nick Gray.
Nick Gray. That was a fascinating chat.
You enjoyed
because,
it?
Look, it was a very different chat. I mean, being in the property sphere and a guy coming from the retail side and putting his perspective, talking about buyer behaviour in retail, my mind instantly went to how does that actually translate into buyer behaviour in property? Because there's a lot of common traits between a retail spender and a person buying a property. They're both typically very emotional decisions.
Yep.
So I thought that was a fascinating discussion, and there was some really interesting points that I took from that discussion, and even from our discussion we had earlier in the week talking about Black Friday and what does that mean, and the consumer sentiment and even buyer behavior and why brands do Black Friday and have discounts on a particular day. So I actually found that chat fascinating. And there's a few points that I actually wanted to dig in a little further on with you.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm happy to. It's interesting because you talk about the retail buyers and the property buyers. They're the same people, right? It's the same person buying this or buying that, right? So they all have the same needs, the same emotions, and how do you facilitate those needs, right? And I brought Nick in because Nick, to me, from a retail perspective, from a buyer behavior perspective, not many people like him who understands it like he does, and I think he comes from has a very good retail lens. But how do we apply that to property? Not many people that watch this because they're interested in property or work in property would know who Nick is. But I hope they can go back, watch that episode and learn from what he said as well, because we could learn a lot from conversations like that. I don't think there's a lot of property podcasts out there. I don't think there's a property podcast in Australia that has delved into that topic. So I'm happy to delve even deeper.
To me, it's the way a brand makes you feel about something. So when I look at a particular suburb, talking about property side, when I look at a particular suburb and you see 5 projects with different developers back to back, and pricing is relatively the same because pricing is obviously the biggest factor when buying property. But why does a purchaser choose a particular project over another? And sometimes I think maybe where developers could lean into even further, it's the emotional connection to that project. There's a couple of developers that actually do it really well. But there's that emotional connection to maybe that project or the brand that I actually found fascinating, something that I took from that episode, and how it can affect brands positively and negatively as well. Like even talking like Black Friday, how that can positively and negatively affect a brand. But what I found interesting, one of the first points was we talk about why can a consumer go and spend $200 or $300 on one particular item in their 20s, but not realize or have the foresight that how that could impact them in their 40s. And you had a really good point about going to see a doctor and eating lollies and chocolate and whatnot in your 20s. We know that in your 20s, you're young and you can burn that off, that it's going to impact your health in your 40s.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And your doctor will tell you that. But as a 20-year-old, you're like, nah.
You're not worried about future you, yeah.
But it's interesting because I draw a very similarity to young people these days as well with financial side and buying property. And fair enough when you see the average age of a first-time buyer being 37. But I draw something similar when you tell someone in their 20s, save for a property and get ahead, or save for something and get ahead with a good asset so you can buy a property in your 30s. And they look at that and they go, well, too hard, too far away, I'm not going to do that. I actually found that really fascinating as to why did you think, from that discussion that you had, why do you think that is? Someone can spend X amount at a Black Friday sale but struggle to save for a deposit. Why do you think that is the case?
Yeah, it is. To me, there's that emotional. There's obviously the dopamine hit. Speaking to Nick, I saw that more and more. So it's a very quick transaction. I can get a pair of shoes. They can be delivered to me tomorrow, or in some cases today, and I feel good about that transaction.
It's achievable.
I've got something new. It's achievable. It's a nice little hit. It's the same kind of thing when you buy in property. It reminds me of, we just bought our house and we put the for sale sticker on and we take that photo. That's a nice feeling. It's
the emotion, the feeling.
But that feeling takes a long time to get, whereas the shoes you can get like that, right? So I think when it comes to those little retail hits or those, like foodie sort of hits as well, you can get it quickly. We're in a world, you say it all the time, we're in a world of instant gratification, and property is long term. I'm buying this house, I'm living here for a long time, I'm paying a mortgage off. It's a long process, and you don't get those little hits of dopamine along the way. People need to feel good. So the small impulse or the small buys, they get that dopamine hit, like you mentioned.
We've been starved for emotion,
Yeah.
starved for experience, right? So what it's meant is the priority for experience has started to take place of what we would typically be taking a responsible approach to. That economy, experience economy, is going to be everything. What it means is dopamine's always been a really easy way to reward people, and it's very tempting to go down that road.
Yeah.
Do you think the hit of dopamine when you purchase a property would be the same? Do you think it wears off as quick?
I think you definitely feel good when that for sale sticker's on, for example, in like an existing property scenario. You feel good in that moment.
I wonder if the dopamine hit is different. If it's taking you longer to achieve something, does the dopamine hit last for longer? Like a retail, if it's $200 a pair of shoes, you get that, you put them on, you get that box delivered or when you pick it up, you get that dopamine hit. Does that drop off real quick as opposed to like a long-term goal that you've been?
I think maybe it does. Maybe the feeling of home ownership when you achieve it, and then maybe when you pay off your mortgage, I don't know what that feeling's like yet, but that might be a good feeling, right? It might last a while, whereas the shoes is like, obviously it's a quick hit too. It's like Instagram, like social media, right? You're getting these quick little dopamine hits. They don't last very long, but there's a lot of them.
So do you think the social media element to society has changed how people...
Instant gratification is from, instant gratification is driven from social media because it's small bites of content, it's fast, and then that exacerbates into the retail space. And then like I'm saying, like for property, maybe you're thinking, hey, it's again back to the doctor and the lolly scenario. You're thinking, hey, first home buyer age is 37. I'm not going to be able to buy. I'm not worried. I can't get my fix from that.
Yeah. So I even wonder what impact social media has had. Obviously, it's created a instant gratification economy and community. What impact has that had on first home buyer rates being 37 years old now? If people are consuming more and more, and it's much easier to consume because one minute you're scrolling through a couple of reels on Instagram and next minute you're seeing a consumer ad and you click through and you actually purchase something. Those little purchases add up to something quite large across a year. How does that impact someone's ability to save for a deposit and make it very difficult? Like, what impact has social media had on, and I think that was a really interesting point that I found from the episode, that it has had an impact on the behavior aspect to it. And what impact do you think that that's had?
It's obviously had a huge impact because those incremental purchases or little bits of instant gratification do add up. It goes back to another conversation we had, Arjun Paliwal and Konstanthopoulos from McGrath, and anyone should go back and listen to that if they get a chance, because it was another great episode. But they spoke about sacrifice versus strategy, and are they actually the same thing? And we probably have some views on that as well. But Con spoke to this whole, maybe your strategy, your saving strategy, maybe I don't need to buy this right now, or maybe the compound effects of buying one less coffee a week or whatever that is. Right?
It was I think it was the framing instead of saying sacrifice, because it has negative connotations. If you're telling someone you got to sacrifice this, then it seems like you're losing something altogether. I think it's reframing the word sacrifice to saying, no, it's actually part of your strategy. Yeah. Instead of sacrificing this, it's part of your strategy to not buy that right now.
And if you intentionally build that strategy, then you have the opposite of instant gratification, which is delayed gratification. And I think the feeling after delayed gratification is better than, or longer lasting.
Well, the dopamine hit lasts longer, right?
It might not even be
until that first mortgage payment comes out.
You're like, what?
Yeah, what did I do?
Yeah.
But I think talking on brands. So I know you're the brand guy, mate. You love brands. You love building brands, big brands. Our brand. I think it's really interesting to see, because I look at the impact that it can have on brands. So even talking about Black Friday deals, what do you think? There's a boardroom session with some brands from a retail perspective saying, so is the first discussion, do we participate in Black Friday? Because I think it has positives in a short term where there's a hit to revenue or an increase in revenue for retailers in the short term, but does it have an impact long term on some retailers where consumers don't really expect a brand to have a discount? And when you attach the word discount to a brand, it's very hard to actually shake that. Yeah. Does that have an impact?
It depends on the brand, right? So a discount at JB Hi-Fi, their brand discounts is important. Yeah. Coles, their brand discounts is important.
Down, it's staying down.
But Louis Vuitton discounts are not part of that brand, or what people expect from Louis Vuitton, for example. And those are very extreme examples. The challenge that marketers and people that work with brands have is always the immediate results versus long-term results. As a brand guy, I believe in long-term. So it's storytelling, it's emotion, it's people resonating with what you're doing. They agree with you, they like you, they believe in you, they want to be a part of what the community that you're creating, and therefore that is a long-term sales-driven tactic, right? So you know that someone that we're building a beautiful brand.
They grow and they love your brand, as opposed to just a quick instant
They're going to be there
transaction.
always. But the counter to that is we need sales right now. We need bottom line right now. We're looking at quarterly figures. The CEO has to report to the board at end of financial year. What do those numbers look like? They don't care about Nike Just Do It has been such a phenomenal thing for 20 years. McDonald's, I'm loving it. They don't care about that sort of stuff. But what we're saying is, or what I believe is, you should care about that stuff, because all that work you do for the long term means you're not chasing in the short term.
Does the difficulty come when you're trying to measure it? Because brand awareness as a strategy, as opposed to a Black Friday strategy, which is discount your product or have a genuine discount of your product by X amount, you can measure that with what was the bottom.
You can measure
result,
how many dollars did we make this week.
As opposed to brand awareness,
you can't measure how good do you feel about my brand and how likely are you to buy it in the future because of how I made you feel.
How you feel about that particular brand.
You can't measure it, and sometimes you need the foresight and the belief that you are doing the right thing and it is going to pay off. You sort of need that, because you can't even back it up. You even look at it from a digital perspective. If you're advertising on, again, Meta or Google or TikTok, how many people viewed it? People hang their hat on impressions and leads and click-throughs, but those aren't the things to hang your hat on. It's building that community, building an audience, and then eventually it's sales that come from that as well.
I think it's growing a community, but it's difficult to measure, and that's a long-term strategy, right? Which I think a lot of brands potentially can't take as long-term strategy.
It's hard in property. So you mentioned some property companies, developers, agents, what have you, do it well and some don't. The ones that do it well are the ones that have a long-term view. Let's look at property developers. I won't name anyone, but property developers that have a long pipeline. They're in communities for long periods of time.
Community master plan in a particular area.
Exactly. They're going to be in a community for 10 years. Yep. Brand's important for them. Storytelling's important for them.
Absolutely.
Right? Whereas if it's a developer that's working on this site for 18 months and then they're going to move on to the next, brand's not important for them. Sales results are important for them. So what you see is, from a property perspective, and what I think a lot of property developers or property marketing agencies do wrong, is that they're all the same. So if you're, again, I use digital as an example, you're scrolling on Instagram, I see a lot of ads for properties, right?
It's hard to cut through that noise, right? If you're seeing 20 different, that doesn't resonate.
It's, nice headline or hook.
Not stock, but image of the building.
CGI of the building, and then something about how we're reimagining this community and you want to be a part of it. They're all the same.
Yep.
If you hide the logo, you don't know. They all look like they're the same. So in property, we're not doing brand well, I believe. And it's a big opportunity for anyone that wants to do it right.
Because I find that fascinating. I think it probably, for some of the larger developers, they are doing it well. And I can understand why some of the smaller developers don't. Yeah. If they just have a location, X amount of properties, and they're going to build that in and out, it's a lesser to extent of trying to build a community and having that emotional attachment. Whereas those larger developers that are creating communities, you want to have that emotional connection. You want to bring families into a location. You need to have an emotional connection. But I found that episode fascinating because it actually explores how do you create, and even from a retail perspective, right? Because retailers, they probably do it really well where they create that emotional connection with brands. How do you translate that across from a brand perspective with a retailer into a property giant? And I think that's actually a really fascinating topic because it's really the same thought process that goes from a consumer and how they actually love that particular project, making them feel like they're going to be part of that as opposed to just it's a purchase.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important part in the overall story.
Well, of course it's important. They're going to live there, or for the most part, unless they're investors, but they're investing in an area as well. They want that area to do well. But if you're going to live there, you're buying into emotion and story.
So I particularly found that episode fascinating, and I'm glad you did, man. For everyone to listen to this episode. So if you're not already subscribing or liking our content, please like and subscribe. You're going to love this one. Well done, Carbs.
Thanks, man.